Respected Honorable Provost, Parul University, Dr. M. N. Patel sir, respected Dr. Abhay Dharamsi sir, Dean of Faculty of Pharmacy and Principal, Parul Institute of Pharmacy, respected Dr. Vandana Patel Madam, Dean of Doctoral Studies, respected Dr. G.S. Chakravarti sir, Principal, Parul Institute of Pharmacy and Research, Dr. Lalit Lata Jha Madam, Principal, School of Pharmacy, all the faculty members, and my heartily welcome to Dr. Sunil Mahor, the speaker for today's webinar, all the eminent faculties who have joined for this webinar, all the distinguished guests, and my dear students. As you are aware, today we have gathered here for a very interesting topic, that is development of vaccine against COVID-19 virus. Since this COVID-19 has become a pandemic internationally and everything has been tried on it and we have not been able to cure it by now, so whole the focus has been shifted towards the prevention of the disease. So when it comes to the prevention of the disease, then vaccine becomes important, or the vaccine is the first name which comes to our mind. And when vaccine comes to our mind, another question that comes to our mind is that when the vaccine will be available in the Indian market and when we will be getting rid with this pandemic. So our today's speaker is from the field of vaccine only. In past 18 years, he has been doing research on various different kinds of vaccines, gene therapy, biologics, and biosimilar. So welcome, Dr. Sunil Mahor. And before I hand over the presentation to Dr. Sunil Mahor, I will take a moment to introduce you, Dr. Sunil Mahor. Dr. Sunil Mahor has completed his B.Pharm, M.Pharm, and PhD in pharmaceutics from Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Central University, Sagar. After receiving his PhD, he worked for leading international research labs like VIDO, Intervec, Canada, for approximately 2 years as a postdoctoral research scientist, and NFB, National University of Ireland, as Science Foundation Ireland Research Fellow for more than 2 years. He had also served for multiple biopharmaceutical industries, including Aerogen Ireland, Hillman Laboratories India, and Serum Institute of India. For last 18 years of his professional career, he is working on development of novel and advanced technologies for delivery and targeting of new vaccines, development of genetic vaccines, tissue engineering and regeneration based on gene therapies, and novel biologics, biosimilar drug product development. Currently, he is working as a CMC lead for one of the pioneer biotech industry of the India on developing pipeline preclinical conjugate vaccines and clinical development, including fill finish. Dr. Mahor also serves as a reviewer of many international journals like Nanomedicine, International Journal of Pharmaceutics, Journal of Drug Targeting. He has also authored multiple book chapters and peer review articles in various international journals. So when it comes to vaccines, Dr. Mahor is the right person to hear from. So with this, I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Sunil Mahor. Sir, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vivek. Respected teachers, HOD, Vice Chancellor, and dear students. I hope you are hearing me well and my voice is going quite well. To start with the COVID, let me introduce myself. We are in Serum Institute of India working on multiple candidates on COVID to get rid of this virus, which is unfortunately the whole world is suffering from this virus. So I thought better to present on this topic to get more awareness among the people. So I intentionally put the talk on, my title is Development of Vaccine Against COVID-19 Virus and where we are. Because everyone is talking about when the vaccine will come, when the vaccine will available to the public, to the people of India as well as all the humanity. But where we are and how far it is from current time. So let me introduce first what is COVID, how it's spread, what is pandemic. To begin with, this is the current data which says the globally Yesterday night, I took this slide from the WHO website, which says that whole world is facing the pandemic, which is having more than 1 million death and more than 34 millions of confirmed cases of COVID-19. Then it comes to India, where we are. So you can see just today morning, we completed 1 lakh people got died because of this COVID-19 virus. And more than 65 lakhs people are suffered with this disease. So this is the real scenario, and every day 1 lakh people is got suffering from this virus, and out of this 3 to 4% people are getting died. This is because of this virus. So this is utmost priority for all the scientific, regulatory, and government bodies to get rid of this virus by finding a suitable therapeutic solution. So people are working very hard on this virus to get rid of this virus. So let me start with how this pandemic was started. As you are aware that SARS-CoV-2 pandemic was announced by the WHO back in February month. So it was started in December 2019, where the first patient was diagnosed with respiratory infections in China. People was thought it was a pneumonial infections, but the symptoms was similar with the pneumonial infections, but later they identified this is not because of any pneumonia virus or pneumonia bacteria. It is another category of virus that cause this infection, and it is COVID-19. They were named as COVID-19 by WHO. In January, the virus specific name was given SARS-CoV-2, respiratory syncytial virus, which has people who are molecular biologists work on that, their genomes. They identified different domains in the gene, and they published very fast so that the people can get information about the virus and get some solution on that. In April, most adversely affected region was Europe, especially the Italy and Spain. But later, because at that time India announced the lockdown and the cases was not that much in number, but later on the cases was down in Europe, but Asian countries are suffering a lot nowadays. So still there is no solution, and people are trying very hard to get rid of this pandemic. So the most seriously affected population is the elderly people, as you are aware, more than 60 years of age people, those who are complications with the diabetes and heart problems, and those who have a weaker immune responses, even in the younger populations, they are seriously affected with this virus. So this virus attacks on the vital organs such as lung, heart, intestine, blood vessels, especially in the lungs. The virus targets the cells present in the mucosa of the lungs, and this results causes the respiratory distress, and which causes finally to the death. Then how this virus looks like, what it does in the body. So recently it was published that this yellow fluorescent images of the virus, transmission electron microscope images, which says that these viruses are very infective. Coronavirus have a spike, and in the top green layer you can say this is the spike protein on the virus, which has a spike-like structures which have a special role in infections. So these studies suggest that the spike structures bind with the human cells more tightly than the previous known SARS virus that was outbreak in 2003. As you are aware of SARS infections in way back in 2003, but this infections COVID-19 has much more serious implications, and this spread very faster, much faster than the SARS virus. The structures is somewhat similar, but the spread rate is very high. So SARS-CoV-2 virus structure is composed of RNA molecule, which is located inside the viral structure, which is surrounded by the various structural protein of the virus. So the different structured proteins, different structural proteins were identified as protein S is known for spike proteins, protein N, and which is located in the membrane proteins, envelope proteins, protein E, and protein N, which is nucleocapsid proteins. Out of these 4 proteins, people are working very laboriously on protein S, which is spike proteins, and various efforts are going on by developing the vaccines with targeting this protein S. Somehow they are finding the way to how this protein S can be utilized to develop a vaccine against this COVID virus. So the protein has a role of attaching this protein or the virus structure to the receptor in the human cells and facilitate the fusion of the virus content into the cell. As you are aware that all the virus got penetrated or get internalized by the cells. So this protein has a significant role in internalization of this virus. So the major steps of the infections are, first, initially the binding of the human receptors, which is the receptor ACE2, which is responsible for binding this virus. Then delivery of RNA to the human cells or the host cells. Then their replications and transcriptions, and newly formed virus structures and multiple copies of the virus are formed. So this is the typical flow diagram or the schematic programs which says how this virus got internalized by the human host cells. This picture clearly shows that these virus bind with the cells receptors, ACE receptor 2, and then this is the virus is the RNA molecule is released. These multiple copies of RNA and the structural proteins and other proteins are formed inside the host cells, and the multiple copies is released. And this, after the release of multiple virus inside the cells, the innate immune responses are generated, where these immune cells play an important role, and your protections caused by this immune response against these cells. And if your immunity is good, then you are survived. Otherwise, there is a failure of multiple organs, and ultimately the death causes. Then the next slide says when this outbreak was broken or the break, how the government or the regulators approach. They approach in different way. During mid-April, there are 2 different approaches were followed by the government regulatory bodies. Initially, approach was the short-term approach and the long-term approach. In the short-term approach, they instructed the people to maintain good hygiene, quarantine those who are infected, and some tactical treatment. Tactical treatments, they do not strengthen your immune responses, but rather than the goal of this tactical treatment to reduce the adverse impact of the viral infection. So some molecules were identified like remdesivir, antiviral drugs, chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine. Then people tried multiple molecules on efficacy were identified, but they were not sufficient to maintain to reduce the virus load, and they were quite up to certain extent they were effective, but not fully that can remove the whole virus load from the body. So this was the treatment, the short-term approach they were identified, and whatever the molecule they have, they tried, and they are managing with this short-term approach. Another was the long-term approach, which takes longer time to develop any therapeutic solutions, and vaccine comes under this category. So people started working on developing the vaccines, especially the viral immunity against the virus. And the third approach, they tried the strategic treatment approach. In this approach, they tried something which is already existed, like arsenic, aluminum sulfate, CADAs, Ayurvedic solutions. So they tried to manage somehow improve your boost your immunity so that your infection can be contained, and if possibly can be get rid of this virus. So multiple approach was followed when this outbreak was happened. So since I am from vaccine industry working on multiple vaccines, so better to introduce vaccines, what are vaccines, how they work. So you have heard multiple therapeutic products, including vaccines, medicines, drugs, pharmaceutical product, biological product, new chemical entity, new biological entities. These are the different terms used in the industry to develop any therapeutic dosage form. So vaccine is one of them, which contains the antigens and the immunopotentiators like adjuvants and other components of the vaccines. So what are vaccines? So vaccine is a typical definition of the vaccine is the product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity against the specific disease, and protecting the person from that disease. So it's the prophylactic treatment where you were administered with the vaccines to protect yourself against the infections. So since you don't have any infections, but as a prophylactic treatment, you were administered with the therapeutic dosage form, which can enhance your immunity against the infections. So vaccines are usually administered through the needle injection. Most of the vaccines are available in the injected form, injectables, where you have to administer your vaccine by the needles and syringes. But there are some vaccines which are also available in the form of oral vaccines and transdermal vaccines, but they are very few. So most of the vaccines are needle vaccines, injectable vaccines. So what are the components of vaccines? As your antigen is the foremost part of the vaccines compositions, which contain the active components, where all the effects comes from the antigens. Antigen got internalized, got presented in your body, and got immune responses. So main component of our vaccines is antigen. Apart from antigens, there are some other components such as adjuvant, which enhance the immunity or the effectiveness of your antigens by adjuvant. There are some suspending fluid, mostly the water, sterile water. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, yes, sir. Please continue.
Yes.
We can hear you, sir. Please continue.
I got some voice, so I heard that connection was. So yeah, so these are the components which includes adjuvant, suspending fluid, preservative and stabilizers, and some culture media carryovers from the, because all these antigens are produced by the biological process, fermentation, purification process. So there are some carryovers from those process. Apart from that, in the formulations or in the product, mostly the adjuvants, preservative and stabilizers, buffers, and some other components are there. So this is the typical video that I'm going to present on how the vaccine works, because this is the example with the influenza vaccines where the respiratory infection occurs. So it is better to know how these vaccines work. So let me have some run this video so you have a better understanding how this works. So it was a very good pictorial representation how the vaccine works. So just hold on. Yes, I am audible.
Yes, sir. You are audible. You can continue.
Yes, yes. So now you are aware that how these vaccines works. So these are the historical fact sheets where the WHO play an important role to announce the various pandemics. In history, there was 5 pandemic was announced in different years. It started from polio, then Ebola in 1976, then 2002 there was SARS pandemic, and there was a Middle East respiratory syncytial virus in 2012, and then this is 2019 where the COVID-19 pandemic was announced. So out of these, this slide says how long it takes to develop a vaccine against this particular strain or particular infections. So since it's 60 years after the polio was outbreak, uh, the people are working on developing the vaccines, and still multiple vaccines are available as well as oral vaccines, injectable vaccines, but still the polio is existing in the multiple countries. And then Ebola is the one of the candidate where the outbreak was happened in 1976, and since 2005, 15 year was people are working since last 15 years, and still the vaccines was in 2019 there was some vaccines was approved, but they have a limited efficacy with this Ebola. In SARS vaccines, 17 years was going on, there is no vaccines available. MERS, where the Middle East respiratory syncytial infections, where the first outbreak was happened in 2012, and after 6 years there was no vaccines available. And this is historically the significance with the COVID-19, where the outbreak was happened in 2019, and there was a first clinical trial in March, started in March 2020, and in 12 to 18 years, you will have the vaccine candidate in phase 3 trial, and hopefully in next couple of months, you will hear some good news about the first vaccine was launched. So this is a significant development and the hard work of the team of multiple countries which come as a offered as a successful vaccines. So this is you can see how the science and people are working on that. So this is the typical cycle of vaccines or drug product approval, productions, including everything, where the work started from the academic research. You got multiple information on the infections, virus, bacteria, or whatever the cause of infection are. Then you do some preclinical research where you use animal models to develop, to see the efficacy of your product that you are developing. Then human trials start in multiple phases, starting from phase 1 to phase 2, phase 3. And after this, once your product is in the phase 3 and you got some positive results, you start build factories, production, you plant productions, you manufacture your vaccines, and then you apply for the regulations for multiple regulatory bodies of different countries. And once your product got approval from these regulatory bodies, then you start distributing and supplying these vaccines or drug product to these countries. So these are the typical path, and in the vis-a-vis to COVID-19, where how fast the clinical development happened. In classical case, where clinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 all took almost 2 to 3 years in each phase. So it almost takes more than 10 years to develop a classical vaccines. But in case of pandemic, where the world is looking for a therapeutic solution to get rid of this virus, you see how fast the people are working. And in 1.5 years, you will see. So since last 1 year is happened from March, or from December to December, almost a year, all this step was completed. Now most of the candidates are in phase 3 trials. So after that, only the last phase of manufacturing and vaccinations will start. So this is another pathway where how the vaccines are, typical life cycle of our vaccines, where you have start from the before to the preclinicals, you have a target validations, then you have start from the R&D to design targets, you identify multiple targets, 4 or 5 targets, then you make small batches of your product, then some in vitro in vivo testing, then target validations, which confirms that whatever you selected, it is working. Then it goes to clinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then last inner circle comes as a supply, distribution, and manufacturing. So finally, you got ideal candidate vaccines or a product which have required by the billions of doses, which is effective and producing long-lasting immunity. So this is the typical pathway for any product that works for get rid of multiple infections against the vaccine. So this is the ideal vaccine candidate, which I'm not going to detail on that because as you are know, the vaccines which is taken as a 0.5 ml administered dose should be stable. It should be single dose or multiple dose. It should be efficacious. The formulation should be sterile, whether it is in liquid form or it is in lyophilized form. So these are the different characteristics of the product and ideal candidate vaccines. People are working on different products, so they have different characteristics profile of this COVID vaccines. So multiple candidate ways were selected to develop vaccines, which includes viral vector, proteins, DNA, RNA. So this slide clearly says the multiple targets were identified to develop a vaccine against COVID-19, which includes viral vectors, attenuated or live virus, DNA, virus-like particles, subunit purified proteins, and inactivated virus. These are the different targets people are working, the industries are working on these candidates to develop a therapeutic solution. So these are the another slide which says what are these platform technologies. So this says DNA, which integrate into the host cells and develop the translate the therapeutic antigen, which is presented and develop the immune responses against the infection. Another category is the RNA. RNA itself you cannot deliver into the cells because it is very fragile and you cannot get internalized very well with these RNA molecules. So you need some protective layers. People are working RNA with the nanoparticles. So they are developing vaccines with the nanoparticles. Another is the protein based, where you would need adjuvants. There are some viral categories which includes viral vectors, whether they are non-replicating, replicating, inactivated, or attenuated. So these are the some technologies that people are working on that. So till now, you have heard that more than 100 candidates are in the pipeline in different phases of multiple countries and multiple industries. So out of those, most of the candidates are protein-based, which are purified, which have more advantages as compared to other category of candidates. Another big chunk is the RNA molecules, where you have 20 candidates in the pipeline. Another is the viral vectors, 16, and non-viral. Out of the, if you include both of these, they will come as a 30 numbers. So 45, 30, and 20. So these are the three major category where the people are looking hopefully for against the COVID virus. So there are some advantages in each of the technology, advantages and disadvantages. So out of those, protein is the one of the category where the antigens is highly purified, and you need some disadvantages with the protein-based technologies is they are poorly immunogenic. So you need some adjuvant, their scale up, their quantity manufacturing scale is the challenges which need to overcome to develop a successful vaccine in this category. But our other category also have some advantages and people are working on that. So these are the some typical candidates in each of the categories. This is the RNA based candidate. People are working on that. So out of those, you have heard many companies name like Moderna, which is in the advanced stage. Another is the Chinese company, which is called Shanghai Jiao Tong University candidate, which is the RNA-based vaccines. And another are important is the Pfizer candidate, which is including with the biotech and Fosun Pharma. So these are collaboratively developing the vaccine based on RNA. Then DNA-based vaccines, people are working on some DNA. And out of those, Indian company called Zydus Cadila is working on the DNA plasmid vaccines. And most of the vaccines are in the preclinical phase. Only the phase 1 is passed with the electroporation with the in vivo is a company where this technology was successfully delivered this DNA to the certain extent. Another category is purified protein, the major chunk of this vaccine development program. So in those Indian company, you see in the bottom, the biological E is developing the adjuvanted protein-based vaccines, which are in the preclinical phase. So most of the candidate in the protein-based, because it takes lots of challenges and lots of time. So most of the vaccine in the protein category is preclinical. Still, none of the candidate has gone for phase 1 or phase 2. Then there is another category is a replicating virus, where virus replicate itself in the numbers. So in the multiple companies are working on that. Most of the technologies are in the preclinical stage, so it will take time to develop. This is the most challenging category, or the most interesting category, where the virus is not replicating, and the virus does not replicate inside the host cells, but have the sufficient number of viruses in the product, in the vaccine product. So out of those, most of the vaccines are, although in the preclinical, but 3 companies significantly, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and CanSino, Chinese company, which are in the advanced stage of phase 3. So they are working, and hopefully they will have some good result in this month of October. Another category is virus-like particles, but they are all the preclinical development stage. So this slide clearly says, based on these technologies, where we are. So based on these technologies with multiple companies, you can see different doses commitment, as well as where their programs are, whether they are in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. So out of those, this AstraZeneca University of Oxford AZT122 candidate, which is in very advanced stage of phase 3, and Serum as a company, we are working on this candidate, and we are committed to deliver 400 million doses by the end of 2020 against this. Then another candidate is Johnson & Johnson, which is based on adenovirus, and there is Chinese company. Their data has not been published, their commitment has not been published, so we are not sure about this Chinese company's CanSino, how far they have reached, but they are claiming they are started phase 3 trial. In protein category, most of the candidates are in preclinical stage, so there is a question mark when they will deliver the vaccines, where their program phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 will start. But RNA is another candidate or another technology where leading candidates are in the phase 3 trials. So Moderna and the Pfizer, BioNTech with the Pfizer, they have committed these doses. They are in the phase 3 trials, and rest of the technologies are not they are way back in phase 1 or preclinical phase. So out of these 5 categories, you have a clear-cut idea that viral vectors and the RNA-based vaccines are leading, and up to some extent, the protein candidate is also working well. They are in phase 1, phase 2, but the hope is totally lies on this virus category, which is called viral vector, especially the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and RNA called Pfizer. So this video specifically says how these vaccines are made, especially in the industry setup. I have took this example from the Sanofi, which is our collaborator. To how these vaccines are developed, you have a very interesting video. You will see how these vaccines are made. Just have a look on that.
It's a simple gesture, one we make dozens of times.
Just hold on. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So just have a look on this video, how the vaccines are manufactured in the industry setup.
simple gesture, one we make dozens of times for ourselves and our families to help prevent potentially life-threatening infectious diseases such as meningitis, pertussis, flu, polio. Vaccines work by preparing the immune system to better combat infection and prevent disease.
The voice is coming.
They are biological products
Yes, it is okay.
and careful scientific processes that ensure the quality of each shot. Here's how vaccines are made. Production starts with growing viruses or bacteria in the lab. A wide range of parameters must be managed, like temperature, pH, oxygen rate, sterility, and homogeneity. The slightest variation in the culture media may compromise the production and cause delays. Depending on the vaccine, cell cultures take from 2 days to 3 months. From a small amount of original cell culture solution, the manufacturer can eventually produce millions of vaccine doses. The microorganisms are extracted from their environment through a process called purification, which eliminates any trace of culture media. We then inactivate the virus or bacteria. That means we eliminate its ability to cause disease. We disarm it. But we retain its ability to elicit a precautionary immune response from the body. The inactivated virus or bacteria is called a valence. A vaccine can include one or several valences to protect against one or multiple diseases in the same shot. Each valence must remain fully effective, and it must not interfere with the other valences. This careful, precise combination takes years of scientific research and development to perfect. Then, stabilizers or a preservative are added in extremely small quantities to help guarantee that the vaccine will remain stable, potent, and effective. Sometimes an adjuvant is also added to enhance the body's immune response to the vaccine. Certain vaccines are also freeze-dried into a powder to help further preserve the vaccine's efficacy. This is particularly important for vaccines that are intended to prevent outbreak-prone diseases like yellow fever, where having available stocks on hand over time is an important element to combating and containing disease. When it's time for the vaccine to be administered, it will be reconstituted by combining this powder with the diluent. The vaccine in liquid or freeze-dried form and diluents as needed are then filled into vials or syringes. When the filling phase is complete, each vial or syringe undergoes visual inspection. The quality of the contents and the container are scrutinized by both the human eye and state-of-the-art digital surveillance technology. All along the production, Sanofi Pasteur performs hundreds of laboratory tests on each and every batch of vaccine to confirm quality. In addition, samples are taken from each batch and sent to public health authorities for testing as well. Only after the vaccines have successfully passed both sets of tests can distribution begin. There are no exceptions. If a batch does not meet the quality criteria, it will be destroyed. Throughout packaging and shipping, vaccines must be stored between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. Cold rooms and temperature-controlled shipping solutions, such as refrigerated containers and isothermal packaging, protect the vaccines during each phase of transportation and storage. A temperature tracking device is included in each shipment. Sanofi Pasteur takes care to follow strict precautions throughout the entire manufacturing process to ensure the quality of our vaccines. Production takes place in absolutely sterile conditions. Even the atmosphere is purified. Continuous control along the production chain also ensures that raw materials, equipment and manufacturing processes, and the finished product are of the highest quality. In total, more than 70% of the time required to produce a vaccine is spent on these quality controls. Depending on the vaccine, we conduct up to 1,200 different tests throughout the process. For these reasons, the total time required to produce a vaccine ranges from 6 months for the flu vaccine, for example, to 36 months for combination vaccines. For Sanofi Pasteur, assuring a reliable supply of quality vaccines is an essential part of our mission. We've been committed to developing and delivering innovative vaccines to people around the world for more than 100 years. As a leading vaccine company, we are proud to contribute to protecting health and empowering life.
I hope you would have an idea how these vaccines are manufactured in the industry setup.
Yes.
Just- So after the manufacturing in the industry setup, these GMP manufactured vaccines, there are multiple agencies in the world which regulate the distribution in the different part of the world. The countries who are rich, they can manage, they have a different, very well-oiled mechanism to distribute the vaccines, but the poor countries and African countries where they don't have a good network or the good distribution chain, multiple agencies like UNICEF, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, WHO, they are working effectively to deliver and distribute these life-saving vaccines to the different part of the world. So after manufacturing, how these vaccines are distributed throughout the world. So in conclusion, I know that by presenting different aspects of this COVID-19 virus, you would have a fair idea where we are. And to conclude my talk, the first time in the history, a successful vaccine development program is currently underway with lots of hopes and expectations against COVID-19 eradications. Novel corona vaccines currently achieving critical milestone in record minimal time with the advancement of science and technologies. And year 2020 is called for the year of fear and hope because people are living in the home again in the lockdown and lots of fear among the people because of this pandemic. But people are looking 2021 as a year for the great medical science achievements in which almost 2/3 of the world would be vaccinated. And this year will be called as a year of hope to get the vaccine against the novel coronavirus. Thank you very much. Now I'm open for question answer session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. And your presentation has definitely aroused some question in the minds of the attendees. So I request the attendees, if they have got some doubt, it's a good opportunity to clear from Dr. Sunil now. So if you have any questions, you can ask him. Yes, any one of you, if you are having any questions, you can ask.
Yes.
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था
Yes.
सर जैसे चाइना में इतने ज़्यादा केसेस डेवलप ज़्यादा हुए नहीं जैसे इंडिया या और दूसरे कंट्री में हुए तो वहाँ पर क्या जो सार्स से पहले वो लोग ऑलरेडी सफर कर चुके थे तो वो जो इम्यूनिटी डेवलप हुई होगी उनमें सार्स के वायरस से तो वो उनको हेल्प करी होगी क्या?
China have a different mechanism actually to control and eradicate any virus because they are very well tuned. Because out of these 5 pandemic, 4 pandemic originate from the China.
Yes.
So they have very good well awareness among the because they have a different setup. They are not democratic country. They hide lots of information, and government is enough powerful to control everything. They don't have like in India media that strong, which so they can control very easily as compared to India. And the past experience also have some advantages for them to contain this virus. So altogether, still the people are not. They don't have any real picture of the China with respect to COVID. How much losses has been occurred? How many people has got died? So they are all fair. Means the clumsy data they are presenting. They are saying we have only 3,000-4,000 people death, but nobody is believing because the effect of this pandemic in this world, people are seeing in the countries where India, like countries where the population is that much, and you are reaching at 1 lakh people at this point of time. And China cannot say we have only 3,000 casualty at this with all this pandemic. So their data is very um, nobody is believing on that. One recent report what I was reading that they were saying in China last 1 year 60 lakhs mobile connection was stopped. There was no trace of the mobile connection was lost. So this may be due to COVID or anything. People are changing the network, but here are 60 lakhs is good number. So you cannot say that all is because of they want change for the network and they have the significant loss, but they are not reporting because otherwise the blame will come on them. Already world is blaming on them, so they don't want to make their position very uh, pathetic in this situation, especially, and they don't want to to uh, to make their relation bad with the other countries.
हाँ सर, बात तो ऐसे भी हुई थी जिसको बीसीजी का या पोलियो वैक्सीनेशन जहाँ पर ज्यादा हुआ है वहाँ पर थोड़ा सा कम खतरा है, तो मे भी ये हो सकता है इम्यूनिटी डेवलप हुई हो।
नहीं, बट वो केवल डाटा बेस्ड ऑन द पुर्तगाल और स्पेन जो नेबरिंग कंट्री था वहां से आया था।
Yes,
स्पेन
sir.
में जो है बीसीजी का वैक्सीनेशन इज नॉट देयर इन इम्यूनाइजेशन प्रोग्राम, पुर्तगाल में होता है, बट केवल उस डाटा के बेसिस पे कि केवल वैक्सीन उनको लगती थी इस वजह से वहां पे इन्फेक्शन कम हुआ है, या हो सकता है कि वहां पर लॉकडाउन ने और चीजों ने कंट्रोल किया हो, बट अल्टीमेटली बीसीजी तो इंडिया में भी लगती है, बट नंबर तो इंडिया में बहुत हो गया, तो बीसीजी का कोई ऐसा प्रेसिडेंस नहीं है, बट स्टिल देयर आर सम स्टडीज आर गोइंग ऑन which clearly show the impact of this BCG, but if there is some role, but this will be very limited, not that significant role that can avoid this situation.
Okay, thank you.
But sir, I have also got one question.
Yes.
We are hoping to see the COVID-19 vaccine very soon, as you told. But will it will be affordable so that it can be given to the masses?
Yeah, I would say since the companies that are involved in developing the vaccines in India, they are large manufacturing capacity of producing the large number of doses. So if you see their track record, past records, they are supplying the most poorest country of this world with the affordable vaccines. So the vaccines which are not reachable to the poorest country, they are providing the vaccines to them. And apart from that, there is a government push up, the government efforts which will make them affordable, because the numbers are so high, the numbers of required doses would be so high, so they will have to. And I heard somewhere in the newspaper, they have committed, the leading manufacturer have committed to the government, it would be somewhere cost around 300, 400 in private market, and they will supply to the government somewhere 250 or 300 rupees. I think this is affordable rate. And the company have a track record in developing billions of doses. So they are managing their cost by increasing the volume and reducing the cost.
Sir, what would be the size of the first batch? Because we are 125 crore. So the first batch that would be released after all the permissions, would it be sufficient to immunize some percentage of our Indian population?
Let's say that the company that everyone is hoping or leading the race against COVID-19, they are making around 1 crore doses per day. They are filling 1 crore doses. And they are producing since last 1.5 months. So they will have a good number, and by the time when this approval will happen, they will have good number of doses, and this doses will be distributed to throughout the world. They have committed to distribute through WHO to the different part of the world, but they have also committed to the Indian government that they will reserve the half of the quantity, whatever the manufactured is here in the company, they will available that doses, half of the doses, manufactured doses will be available for India.
Okay.
So that number will also be sufficient number. And this is the government plan, how they distribute it. They have the priority set up. They have the what are their priorities, where they want to, what is their distribution network. Will they give some private market, some quantity in the private market, or all initial doses will be taken by the government? Nothing is clear. Once the phase 3 data will come, then the picture will be more clear. But definitely the government has planned, and they will have the blueprint for how to distribute in the distant region. What are their priorities? The older people, I think the older and the people, those who are more susceptible for this infection, they will be covered first.
Sir, I have got one more question. That as you told that this clinical trial, they are being done on a very fast mode.
Yes.
So should not we expect some vulnerability to side effect of our major populations, because they are done on a very fast mode?
We are at
some serious complications in the future.
Yeah, there may be, but because nobody got the time to do all the studies in very short period of time, because studies have a sequences, they have the multiple facets, they have multiple studies are involved to get everything come in before the regulations or before the registrations. But you are not fortunate that you didn't get that time to do those studies. But whatever the necessary studies are required, it will be done. Then only the registrations and distribution will start. It will take 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months. If anything they find in between, just recently one example was happened, one person got infected. So they stopped the trial and they investigate what was happened. So they don't want to stop the program, but at the same time they don't want to compromise on the trials what are required. Definitely the time is not that enough they can come out with everything, but they would have sufficient support with the studies, and they will come out with the good results. And hopefully, and we have to believe they are not small companies, they have a good repo in the world, and they will not compromise with the scientific outcomes.
So, any other questions? Any other question from any attendees? Okay, so it seems you have answered all the doubt.
Yes.
So, madam is asking something.
No, ma'am, your voice is very less.
Voice is not, madam is not hearable. Madam, you are not audible. Okay, so it seems you have answered all the doubts, and I shall conclude, sir. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to address us on this very interesting topic. You have given a very wonderful presentation and a very comprehensive talk on development of vaccine against COVID-19 virus. Starting from the outbreak, you have updated us on every aspect of the COVID vaccines, the various COVID vaccine candidates, the possibility of the vaccine coming in the market, and the clinical trials going on. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for this wonderful talk. And it was really interesting and wonderful, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm also thankful to all the attendees who have joined for this seminar. I'm thankful to
feedback form.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will be updating you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Should I leave now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.